Liam stood at the edge of the large, open training arena, looking out at the alien creature that lay before him. The arena was built to hold the galaxy's most dangerous species, but today, it was the setting for an even more dangerous task. The air was heavy, filled with the smell of metal and sweat, and the low hum of machinery echoed in the background. A soft breeze stirred the dust at his feet, but his focus remained on the task at hand. He had been hired for one reason: to tame Ithra. Ithra was unlike any creature Liam had trained before. She was an alien predator, a being from a deathworld known as Zecoria, a place where only the strongest survived. Her species had been bred for strength and speed, able to outlast any natural predator. But it was her intelligence that had made her so dangerous to others. She could think, reason, and outsmart even the best of trainers. As Liam approached the containment area, Ithra's eyes locked on him. They glowed an intense shade of violet, sharp and piercing. Her large frame rose from the shadows, stretching to her full height. Standing over 8 feet tall, with sleek, dark fur and powerful limbs, she looked every bit the fearsome creature that had earned her reputation. Her tail lashed back and forth, a clear sign of agitation. Liam knew the first rule of training was patience, but he could feel the tension building in the air. He had been briefed on Ithra's abilities, how she had resisted every attempt to tame her, how she had escaped from her previous trainers with ease, and how she was feared by those who dared to challenge her. But Liam wasn't afraid. He had faced down dangerous creatures before, and he was confident he could handle this one too. "All right, Ithra," he said softly, his voice calm but firm. "Let's see what you've got." He moved closer, carefully watching her every move. Ithra's tail stopped flicking and her eyes narrowed, sizing him up. She took a slow step toward him, her massive paws making no sound on the ground. The silence was thick, almost suffocating, as Liam stood his ground. Ithra's gaze never left him as she circled him, her large, muscular body moving with a fluid grace that belied her size. Liam didn't flinch, didn't take his eyes off her for a second. He knew that showing fear or hesitation would be the worst mistake he could make. He had trained creatures that were bigger and stronger than him before, but this was different. Ithra was a force of nature, and he had to respect that. Suddenly, with a quick movement, Ithra lunged forward. Her sharp claws glinted in the dim light, and for a moment Liam thought she would strike. But he was ready. With lightning speed, he dodged to the side, narrowly avoiding her strike. He felt the rush of air as her claws sliced through the space where he had been just a moment ago. "Impressive," he muttered, regaining his footing. But Ithra wasn't done. She sprang again, this time faster than before. Liam didn't have time to react. The force of her attack knocked him off his feet, sending him crashing to the ground. Pain shot through his body as he landed hard on the cold metal floor. For a brief moment, everything went black. But then he heard Ithra's deep growl and the sound of her massive feet coming closer. He had to move. Quickly, he pushed himself to his feet, ignoring the pain. He was determined not to let her win. Not today. Ithra circled him again, her eyes flashing with a mixture of curiosity and anger. Liam could feel the tension in the air, the weight of her presence. He could tell that she wasn't just testing his physical abilities, she was testing his resolve. She wanted to see if he would back down. Liam took a deep breath, his mind clear now. He wasn't going to lose this fight. He had a reputation to uphold, but more than that, he had a job to do. And he wasn't going to let this alien creature break him. He took a step forward, his movements slow and deliberate. Ithra stopped, watching him carefully. This was the moment. He couldn't rush it. He had to earn her trust, just like he had done with so many others before her. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, glowing object. It was a pheromone dispenser, something that would help calm her down, to ease her aggression and make her more receptive to his commands. He had used it before with other creatures, but he had no idea how Ithra would respond. The moment he activated the device, the air around him seemed to change. A sweet, calming scent filled the space, and Ithra's ears twitched. She stepped back, her eyes still focused on him, but the aggression seemed to lessen. Liam took another step forward, keeping the pheromones active. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said softly, his voice steady and firm. "I'm here to help you. You don't need to fight me." For a moment there was nothing but silence. Then, to Liam's surprise, Ithra lowered her head slightly, a sign of submission. She wasn't giving in completely, but she was acknowledging him. This was the first step. He had to take it slow. He couldn't force her. He had to earn her respect. Liam let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. He knew it wasn't over. This was just the beginning. But for the first time since stepping into the arena, he felt like he might actually be able to succeed. But as he took another step forward, Ithra's eyes flashed again, and Liam felt the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. Something wasn't right. Before he could react, Ithra let out a deafening roar. The ground beneath them shook as she lunged forward with terrifying speed, her claws aimed straight for his chest. This time, Liam wasn't fast enough. Liam's breath came in sharp gasps as he barely managed to dodge Ithra's claws. The force of her lunge had knocked him off balance, but he had rolled just in time to escape a direct hit. He scrambled to his feet, his body aching, but the adrenaline pushed the pain aside. He had to keep going. He had no choice. Ithra stood before him, her massive body tense and coiled, ready to strike again. Her eyes were like burning embers, full of fire and challenge. Liam could feel the raw power in her movements. This wasn't just a creature to be tamed. This was a warrior. She didn't just resist him because she was wild. She resisted because she was proud. He had faced wild creatures before, but nothing like this. Ithra wasn't just reacting to fear or instinct. There was something deeper at play. She was intelligent, calculating. Each attack wasn't just about overpowering him. It was about testing him, seeing if he could handle the challenge. But what did she want? Did she just want to break him, or was she testing his resolve, looking for something more? Liam wiped the sweat from his brow, his hands trembling slightly from the near miss. He couldn't let her see that. He had to remain in control, no matter how fierce the creature before him was. But it was becoming increasingly clear that Ithra wouldn't be tamed by force alone. He needed to change his approach. He backed away slowly, trying to put some distance between them. Ithra followed every step, her glowing eyes tracking his every movement. She wasn't about to let him off easy. As he moved, he realized that he couldn't just overpower her. He had to outsmart her, earn her trust, and show her that he wasn't just another trainer trying to break her spirit. "You think you can control me?" Ithra's deep, growling voice rumbled through the air, her words spoken with an edge of mockery. "You're just like the others. They all try to break me, but none of them succeeded. What makes you think you will?" Liam froze, startled by the sudden sound of her voice. He hadn't expected her to speak. The words weren't just a challenge, they were a warning. It was as if she was daring him to prove that he was different from all the others. "I'm not here to control you," Liam said carefully, his voice steady despite the turmoil in his chest. "I'm here to understand you, Ithra. I'm here to work with you, not against you." Ithra's head tilted slightly, as if considering his words. For a moment her eyes softened, but the intensity of her presence remained unyielding. She was still testing him, and Liam knew that this was just the beginning. For the next few days, Liam's training strategy changed completely. He abandoned the aggressive methods that he had originally planned. There would be no more forceful commands, no more dominance games. Instead, he took a gentler approach. He spent hours each day simply observing Ithra, studying her movements and learning her patterns. He knew that she was smart, maybe even smarter than he was, and he had to match her intellect, not just her strength. It was hard. Ithra tested him every step of the way. She would push against the boundaries he set, testing them again and again, seeing if he would break. And sometimes he almost did. There were moments when her strength overwhelmed him, when her resistance was so fierce that he felt like giving up. But each time he reminded himself why he was here. He had a job to do. And more importantly, Ithra wasn't the real enemy. The galaxy had turned her into a weapon, but he didn't believe she had to stay that way. One afternoon, as the sun began to set behind the high cliffs surrounding the arena, Liam tried something new. He approached Ithra carefully, moving with deliberate slowness. Instead of attempting to control her or subdue her, he extended his hand out in front of him, palm open. It was a silent gesture, a simple offering showing that he wasn't a threat. Ithra's eyes flicked from his hand to his face, studying him intently. For a long moment she didn't move and Liam held his breath. She was unpredictable, and he never knew what she would do next. But this time she didn't strike. Instead, she took a cautious step forward, her large, muscular body moving gracefully as she tested the waters. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, she leaned forward and sniffed the air around him. Her breath was warm against his hand, and he felt her deep rumble of a growl vibrating through the ground beneath them. It wasn't a growl of anger, it was one of curiosity. Liam didn't move, keeping his hand extended. He knew this moment was fragile. If he moved too quickly, or if he showed any sign of fear, he might lose her trust forever. But if he waited too long, she might grow bored or frustrated. Just when he thought she might back away, Ithra made her decision. She touched her nose to his hand, the rough texture of her skin against his palm. It was a simple gesture, but for Liam it was everything. She hadn't attacked. She hadn't rejected him. She had acknowledged him. A sense of calm washed over him, but he knew this was just the start. Ithra was still wild, still untamed. But for the first time since he arrived on this Deathworld, he felt like they were on the same side. The next day, things took a turn. Liam had been working with Ithra for weeks now, making slow but steady progress. They were starting to understand each other. But the true test came when a new challenge was introduced, another trainer, someone who had a very different approach to handling alien creatures. Orcs was a seasoned trainer, known for his brutal methods and his success in breaking the most difficult creatures. He had heard of Ithra's reputation and had come to claim her for himself. His methods were harsh, and he didn't believe in the gentle approach that Liam was taking. For him, control was everything, and he wasn't interested in understanding Ithra or working with her. He only wanted to break her and add her to his collection. When Orcs arrived at the arena, Liam knew that things were about to get complicated. He watched as Orcs stepped into the training space, his eyes immediately locking on Ithra with cold calculation. Liam's stomach tightened as Orcs began to issue commands in a sharp, harsh tone, each word aimed at controlling Ithra's every move. Ithra, however, didn't react the way Orcs expected. Instead of obeying, she stood still, her eyes glowing with a mixture of defiance and uncertainty. Orcs's harsh commands fell on deaf ears. Ithra wasn't going to be controlled so easily, not by him, and certainly not by anyone who saw her as nothing more than an animal. Liam stepped forward, raising a hand to signal Orcs to stop. He couldn't let this go on. This wasn't the way to handle Ithra. "She won't respond to that," Liam said, his voice firm. "You can't force her, you have to earn her trust." Orcs turned on him, his eyes narrowing with disdain. "You think you can tame her with kindness. She's a beast, not a pet. She needs to be shown who's in charge." Liam's jaw tightened, but he refused to back down. "You don't understand her. You think you can control her, but all you'll do is break her. She's not just a creature to be dominated. She's a partner. You have to work with her, not against her." Orcs's face twisted into a sneer. "We'll see about that." Liam could feel the tension between them, but he knew one thing for sure. This wasn't just about taming Ithra anymore. It was about showing everyone, including himself, that there was another way. A way that didn't involve breaking the spirit of the creatures they sought to control. This was a challenge, not just for Ithra but for Liam himself. And it was only the beginning. The sun had set, and the training grounds were bathed in the dim light of the fading day. The air was cool, but tension lingered, thick like smoke. Liam stood near the edge of the arena, his eyes never leaving Ithra. The creature was resting, her massive body curled in a corner of the training space. Her eyes were half closed, but Liam could still feel the weight of her gaze on him. It had been weeks since he first started working with her, and while things had improved, they were far from perfect. Ithra had come to trust him in small ways, but there were still moments when she tested him. When her wild side broke through, Liam knew he had to be ready. One wrong move could send everything crashing down. Orcs had been gone for a few days, but Liam couldn't forget their last encounter. The other trainer's harsh methods had clashed with Liam's own philosophy, and the two hadn't seen eye to eye. Orcs had made it clear that he intended to take Ithra with him, to break her and add her to his collection. Liam couldn't let that happen, but as the days passed, he realized that their conflict was just the tip of the iceberg. There was more to Ithra's story than he had been told. It wasn't until one quiet evening that Liam learned the truth. He had been working late, reviewing some of the data he had collected on Ithra's behavior, when the door to his small quarters creaked open. He turned to see a figure standing in the doorway, silhouetted against the dim light of the hallway. It was Kara, one of the scientists who had helped bring Ithra to the facility. She had been a quiet presence on the sidelines during Liam's training sessions, always observing, never intervening. But tonight, something about her was different. Her face was pale, and there was a look of urgency in her eyes. "Liam," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper, "I think it's time you knew the truth about Ithra." Liam stood up, his heart racing. He had suspected that there was something more to Ithra's past, something that wasn't being told, but he hadn't expected this. "What do you mean?" Kara hesitated, glancing over her shoulder as if making sure no one was listening. "Ithra isn't just a creature from Zecoria. She's part of a much larger story, a story that began long before she ever arrived here." Liam's curiosity piqued, but he remained silent, waiting for Kara to continue. "You see," Kara began, "Ithra's species wasn't always like this. They were once a peaceful race, living on a lush, thriving planet. They had technology, culture, and society, everything you'd expect from an advanced civilization. But all of that changed when the war came." Liam frowned. "What war?" "The war between the galaxy's most powerful factions. Ithra's homeworld was destroyed in the conflict. It was ravaged, its people scattered and hunted down. The few survivors were forced to adapt to become warriors in order to survive. Ithra was one of those survivors. She wasn't born a weapon, Liam. She was made into one." Liam's mind raced. He had known that Ithra was no ordinary creature, but this revelation was something else entirely. "But why didn't you tell me this before?" Kara's expression softened. "We were afraid. You see, Ithra is more than just a survivor. She's one of the last of her kind. Her bloodline is special, powerful, and there are people who would do anything to get their hands on her." Liam's heart skipped a beat. He knew what Kara meant. Orcs wasn't the only one who had designs on Ithra. There were others, ruthless individuals who would stop at nothing to capture her and use her for their own gain. "And Orcs?" Liam asked, his voice low. "Is he part of this?" Kara nodded grimly. "Yes, he's more than just a trainer. He's connected to a group of mercenaries who seek out rare and powerful creatures, ones with abilities that can change the course of wars. Ithra is one of the most coveted targets." Liam felt a chill run down his spine. It all made sense now. Orcs hadn't just been trying to break Ithra for the sake of control. He had been after her for something much more dangerous. "I won't let him take her," Liam said firmly, his jaw clenched. "I'll protect her no matter what." Kara placed a hand on his shoulder, her eyes filled with sympathy. "I know you will, but you need to understand that it's not just about protecting her. It's about protecting what she represents. If those mercenaries get their hands on her, They'll use her in ways you can't even imagine." Liam looked at Kara, his mind racing with the possibilities. He had always thought of Ithra as a challenge to be overcome, a creature to be tamed. But now he saw her differently. She wasn't just a challenge. She was a survivor, a symbol of the strength and resilience of her people, and he couldn't let her fall into the wrong hands. The next few days passed in a blur. Liam's mind was consumed by thoughts of Ithra and what he had learned. He spent every spare moment with her, trying to deepen their bond and earn her trust. But something had changed. Ithra seemed distant, more guarded than before. Her usual defiance had given way to something else, something darker. It wasn't until one evening, as Liam approached the training arena, that he saw just how far things had shifted. Ithra was pacing back and forth, her body tense, her eyes flicking to every corner of the room. She was waiting for something, or someone. Liam stepped into the arena, his heart pounding. "Ithra," he called softly, but she didn't turn. Her ears twitched, but she didn't acknowledge him. He took a step closer, his voice calm but firm. "Ithra, what's wrong?" For the first time in weeks, Ithra spoke. "They're coming." Liam's breath caught in his throat. "Who?" "They will take me," Ithra said, her voice low and filled with resignation. "They will come for me, and I will have no choice but to fight." Liam felt a pang of fear in his chest. He knew she was right. The mercenaries, Orcs, and whoever else was after her, they were closing in. But this time it wasn't just about training her or taming her. It was about survival, Ithra's survival, and the stakes had never been higher. "You don't have to fight them," Liam said, his voice steady but filled with determination. "I'll protect you, Ithra, I promise." But Ithra shook her head, her expression dark and unreadable. "It's too late for that, Liam. You don't understand what's coming." Liam stepped forward, his resolve hardening. "Then we'll fight together, we'll face it, and we'll win." For the first time in days, Ithra's gaze softened just for a moment. But in that fleeting moment, Liam saw something in her eyes, something he hadn't seen before: hope. The days that followed were filled with uncertainty. Liam knew that Ithra's time in the facility was running out. The mercenaries were closing in, and every moment that passed brought them one step closer to finding her. The air felt heavy, the tension almost unbearable. It wasn't just about surviving anymore. It was about protecting Ithra, about giving her the chance to have a future free from the chains of those who wanted to use her. Liam had been working tirelessly to find a way out, a way to get Ithra off the planet before the mercenaries arrived. He knew that escaping wasn't going to be easy. The facility was locked down tight, and the security measures were more advanced than anything he had ever dealt with. But Liam was resourceful. He had spent his whole life working with dangerous creatures, using his wits to outsmart them. Now he had to use that same skill to outsmart the facility's security and get Ithra to safety. It was late one evening when he finally came up with a plan. He had been studying the facility's layout for days, memorizing every hallway, every door, every security checkpoint. He had found a small, unmonitored exit at the far end of the facility, hidden behind a series of maintenance tunnels. It wasn't much, but it was enough. If they could make it through those tunnels, they would be able to reach the surface undetected. The problem was that Ithra wasn't just another creature to be whisked away in secret. She was large, powerful, and highly intelligent. If anyone saw her, they would know immediately that something was wrong. Liam knew that he had to be careful. The last thing he wanted was to alert the mercenaries before they were ready. That night, Liam approached the training arena with a mixture of determination and caution. He had spent hours preparing Ithra, making sure that she was calm and ready for what was about to happen. He couldn't afford any mistakes. If they were going to escape, it had to be now. Ithra was waiting for him in the arena, her large form crouched low in the shadows. Her eyes gleamed faintly in the darkness, watching him with a mixture of curiosity and trust. Despite everything that had happened, despite the danger they both faced, there was a quiet understanding between them now. They were no longer just trainer and creature. They were partners, bound by a shared goal. Liam stepped forward slowly, keeping his movements steady and deliberate. "Are you ready?" he asked softly, his voice filled with resolve. Ithra's ears twitched and her tail flicked once in acknowledgement. She was ready. She had to be. Liam took a deep breath and activated the small device he had concealed in his pocket. A soft hum filled the air as the pheromone dispenser released a calming scent into the arena. It was a signal, a way to help Ithra focus and stay calm amidst the chaos of their escape. It worked almost immediately. Ithra's tense posture relaxed, and she turned her head toward him, her eyes locking onto his with a look that spoke volumes. She was with him, no matter what. "Let's go," Liam said, his voice steady as he led the way toward the maintenance tunnels. The journey through the facility was tense but uneventful. The halls were quiet, the security systems seemingly unaware of the threat that was about to break free. Liam kept his movements sharp, his mind focused on the task ahead. He couldn't afford to make a single mistake. They reached the entrance to the maintenance tunnels without incident, and Liam quickly began to work on the lock. It was a small, discreet door, hidden behind a row of supply crates. He had already studied the access panel, and he knew exactly what to do. With a few quick movements, he bypassed the lock and opened the door, signaling for Ithra to follow him. Ithra hesitated for a moment, then stepped through the door, her massive form moving gracefully despite her size. Liam couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. This wasn't just a creature he was training anymore. This was a being with intelligence, will, and strength. They were both in this together, and that made all the difference. As they moved through the narrow tunnels, Liam couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Every shadow seemed to move, every creak of the facility felt louder than before. But he knew that if they could just make it to the surface, they would be free. It was just a matter of getting there before the mercenaries found them. The tunnels were long and winding, filled with the scent of machinery and rust. But Liam didn't slow down. He kept moving forward, leading Ithra through the maze of dark passages. The further they went, the more Liam's heart raced. He knew that the clock was ticking. They didn't have much time before the mercenaries arrived, and if they didn't make it to the surface soon, they would be trapped. At last, they reached the end of the tunnel. Liam could hear the distant hum of the surface-level air systems. He took a deep breath and pushed open the final door, stepping out into the cool night air. They were free, for now. But as soon as they stepped into the open, Liam's heart sank. A ship was waiting in the distance, a sleek black vessel with glowing red engines. It was the mercenaries. They had found them. Liam cursed under his breath. He hadn't anticipated them arriving so quickly. They had to move, and they had to move fast. "Ithra, we need to run," Liam said urgently, his voice rising with panic. "Now." Ithra seemed to understand instantly. Her body tensed, and she bounded forward with incredible speed, her powerful legs propelling her forward as she leaped across the ground. Liam followed closely behind, running as fast as he could. The ship was getting closer. He could hear the sound of its engines powering up, and he knew that if they didn't make it to cover, they would be caught. They reached a rocky outcrop just as the mercenaries' ship landed, the ground shaking beneath them. Liam ducked behind a large boulder, his breath coming in ragged gasps. He could hear voices approaching, and he knew that they were close, but they couldn't afford to be found. Not now. Ithra crouched beside him, her body still and silent as she waited for the right moment. Liam's eyes scanned the area, looking for a way out. There had to be a way to escape. He wasn't going to let this end here. And then he saw it. A small transport shuttle, parked near the edge of the landing pad. It wasn't much, but it was their only chance. If they could make it to that shuttle, they could get away. "Ithra," Liam whispered urgently, "we have to move. Now." Without hesitation, Ithra sprang to her feet, her powerful legs carrying her forward at a breakneck speed. Liam followed closely behind, his heart pounding in his chest. The mercenaries were almost upon them, but they couldn't stop now. They reached the shuttle just as the mercenaries realized what was happening. Gunshots rang out behind them, but Ithra and Liam were already inside. The shuttle's engines roared to life, and within seconds they were airborne. Liam's hands shook as he gripped the controls, his eyes fixed on the sky ahead. They were free. They had made it. But as the shuttle soared into the night sky, Liam couldn't help but feel a sense of foreboding. They were no longer just running from their past. They were creating a new future, one where they would fight for the freedom that Ithra and others like her deserved. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time in a long while, Liam felt hope stirring in his chest. It was only the beginning, and whatever came next, they would face it together.